Dying Light 2. There have been some crazy mixed opinions and reviews about this game. So for this video I wanted to discuss how I felt about the game and my experience with it. This will be less of a review and more of a conversation kind of video. To start, I wanted to talk about what I wanted out of the sequel to one of my favorite games of last gen. The first thing I wanted out of this game was improved movement and parkour, and boy did this game deliver. The first title had a very good movement system that felt great, but with number 2, it really does feel like Mirror's Edge with zombies now, and that is a great thing. The developers have said that there's about 1,000 different animations for your character to go through, and it shows. Of course, some of these may be very small and subtle, but it makes the experience very visceral and satisfying to see in motion. Not to mention being able to string together more parkour moves in mid-combat. The second thing I wanted was more emphasis on a story, and unfortunately this is a bit of a mixed bag. Although it is more substantial in its story offerings and events, the characters and plot lines aren't as interesting, nor are they emotionally resonant like the first. Aiden himself isn't a bad character, but he gets very little time to shine other than the occasional witty quip to things people say in goofy situations.
Like? Oh, I don't know. You gotta sing!
Excuse me?
They call me a pilgrim, it means I've been around. Let me tell you that Villador's one badass town. Biomarkers are dope, they give people hope. Yeah! And that giant cathedral makes me feel like the Pope!
Whereas the original Dying Light, Kyle Crane had a few good moments of emotion, such as the death of one of the main characters, of which I still remember to this day because it was one of the more human-like reactions to a death in any first-person game I had saw in a while. But unfortunately you won't find that here. The story is definitely more ambitious, has different paths that you can take, and you will probably end up with different story beats and story outcomes as well as your friends will. In fact, myself and 2 friends all got different endings and very different worlds by the end, with several characters either surviving or abandoning you altogether, given your previous choices. One thing that stands out, and not necessarily in a good way, is the voice acting. Aiden is done just fine, however the NPCs that you interact with have more of a sense of going through the motions of what a conversation should be, rather than feeling like a human conversation, as the first kind of better conveyed. Overall, the story was fine, but it's not going to blow anyone away because it's nothing we really haven't seen before. Now, the third thing I wanted was just more Dying Light, and on that front, it definitely succeeds. Dying Light 2 has plenty of activities to do. They may not be the most varied, but coupled with the movement and gear systems, and some of the funny situations in the side missions, it makes for a pretty fun time. Personally, some of the side missions I felt were a tad better than some of the story missions. They were all pretty solid. The activities that stick out the most to me are the GRE anomaly missions and quarantined areas that you can clean out from old military scientist camps for some of the best loot and feel like the end game of Dying Light 2, even if by the end of the campaign they may not be very difficult to take down. And finally, I had crossed my fingers with the hope of a big graphical leap. On this front, Dying Light 2 mostly succeeds. The environments and places you will visit are all wonderfully rendered. You will see very far off places, and most of the time you can just go there. Every district has its own kind of look and theme to some extent. The first area, for example, is a smaller town where you can really get a feel for your parkour skills with rooftop to rooftop action. But later when you're in the second area, which is similar to the first game, you are literally in the definition of the concrete jungle. Being able to swing from place to place with your grapple hook and jump off of high towers with your paraglider to get to usually unobtainable places. High skyscrapers and deep metros are the name of the game, and they all look stunning, especially when you are standing on top of the tallest building and looking out over everywhere you can explore. However, in contrast to this, the character models are inconsistent in design. Some look like they are out of a G.I. Joe episode, and others just look a bit odd. Now to talk about some things that kind of surprised me. I didn't expect the weapons and armor system to be as RPG-like as it was, nor the conversations. Weapons drop with certain stats and abilities to stack onto different abilities and stats of your armor. This brought a lot of longevity to the kind of loot grind and gameplay loop that Dying Light 2 presents. It definitely adds a lot of replayability and reasons to keep going out and fighting more dangerous monsters and completing more difficult activities for the higher gear drops. While not as intricate and customizable as some other games, I definitely appreciated the extra effort in the new weapon system. Running through the streets with your crazy weapons is a ton of fun, especially at night. However, you lose a bit of tension because of some mostly absent infected types that wreaked havoc in the first title. Thankfully, though, the new infected types are very compelling. Some are the same type of infected from the first game, but with a new twist in design. And some are just new to the game entirely. And one specific infected does not get enough love. I have to call out the volatiles. While a constant worry in the first game as you bobbed and weaved through the masses of these terrors, in Dying Light 2, you'll hardly meet them, unless you seek them out or head indoors during the daytime when the infected are all holed up together. I only encountered a handful of them, which really bummed me out because they were a big part of why Dying Light 1 was so tense at night. There are a couple of things that I didn't quite vibe with as much as I thought I would. Firstly, I totally get the idea of starting your character from scratch to make them the ultimate parkour zombie slaying machine. However, some of the parkour skills that you would expect to just be part of the core gameplay are acquired too deep into the campaign through upgrades. For example, you aren't able to do the running slide for the first few hours of the game, which I found very jarring. I was, however, impressed by how many skills that you could acquire and some of the new additions, but I didn't like having to wait so long to start using them. It really made the beginning of the game feel a lot slower than it should have. Also a weird addition, or I guess subtraction, is the removal of the system to repair your weapons. The only way to repair weapon durability is to slot in modifications to increase your durability, and some other things in the end game that massively increase base durability for longer lasting weapon, and you can use it over and over and over. I found this to be an odd design choice. I found myself less attached to a weapon in the beginning of the game, like I would in the first, after packing it around for an extended amount of time and killing many zombies with it. Now, for the berserker-sized elephant in the room, the bugs. Oh boy, were there some bugs.
What the fuck just happened to me?
From quest progress being halted due to co-op desync, which caused some doors and other quest steps not to trigger, that had us disbanding the party, then forming up again to fix, to enemies appearing out of thin air where they really shouldn't be. And there was a slew of other issues, including hard crashes and freezes on my PC.
Oh, the other one's still here.
I just froze.
Which only happened a handful of times, but is still an issue. While they don't ruin the experience, they do put a damper on an otherwise fantastic game. So overall, how am I feeling about Dying Light 2? I really feel like I got what I wanted out of the sequel, even if there are some things that didn't live up to my expectations. I would totally recommend this to anyone, especially when the majority of bugs have been squashed, like the infinite amount of zombie heads that you will destroy on your adventure through this gorgeous world. Alright folks, we've reached the end of the video. If you made it all the way through, thank you so much. And stay tuned to my channel, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I will try to do as many of these review discussion type videos in the future. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.